Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome once again to NoDQ&A video, of course on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel. WWE SummerSlam is now almost a week away. I will be there at Staples Center for the 5th consecutive year to cover SummerSlam for NoDQ.com. So make sure you stay tuned to NoDQ for all the very latest. Enough of that. Let's get right down to your questions via formspring.me/Aaron Rift. All right, first question today comes from Batman6934. Do you think that the injury Sheamus faced is actually good for him? Not getting the injured part, but when he comes back, he can get pushed again. I definitely see it as a blessing in disguise for Sheamus. Now, it is unfortunate that he got hurt, but you know what? This is actually his first major injury to the point where he needs to have surgery. So for a guy who is well into his 30s like Sheamus, to go this long without an injury, I mean, that is something remarkable. And it definitely could be a good thing for him because, let's face it, he's been stale the last several months, and he's gone lost in the shuffle. Even though he's a former WWE champion, he has become just another guy on the roster. And I think a lot of people would say that his babyface run has gotten stale. So maybe when he comes back, you can turn him heel. You can change up his character a little bit. I definitely see him coming back as a face in the short term when he returns, just because he'll get a big pop, and he'll probably return for the Royal Rumble, and that would be a good place to have him come back at the Royal Rumble. Maybe even build him up for a world title match at WrestleMania, and then turn him heel. So I mean, WWE definitely has some time now to figure out what to do with him when he comes back, and I think it will be good for Sheamus's career in the long run. All right, next question comes from Crusher6363. Do you think SummerSlam may be the best pay-per-view of the year? Well, I think that SummerSlam has its work cut out for it because WWE has been on a roll this year with several great pay-per-views. Traditionally, fans see WrestleMania as the biggest show of the year. I wouldn't call WrestleMania the best show of the year for the most part, but this year WWE has really hit a lot of home runs on pay-per-view. Extreme Rules was a very good show. Payback was very good. I thought Money in the Bank was a great pay-per-view. So it's going to be tough for SummerSlam to live up to some of those events. I think that if Daniel Bryan and John Cena can live up to the hype, and let's face it, this match has very high expectations, and this SummerSlam card in general, there's definitely a lot more interest in this year's card than last year's card, at least from the people that I polled on NoDQ.com. So I think if John Cena and John Cena and Daniel Bryan, if they can have a match of the year candidate, that would be a good start. And then CM Punk and Brock Lesnar, if those guys can have an above average match. And then if the rest of the card, the undercard, can be very solid, I think if all these things happen, this SummerSlam could be one of the best, if not the best pay-per-view of the year. And I'm really hoping for it because I'll be there. So, my expectations are high, and I'm hoping for the best. All right, this one comes from Miami Fan 21. Do you think at SummerSlam Daniel Bryan should debut another finisher? Booking with only a submission finisher can be tough, especially when facing John Cena. I agree with you on this. I do think that it's a little too late now to debut a new finisher. There's not really a point because fans would not be familiar with the finisher. I think that in a perfect world, WWE should have had Daniel Bryan debut a pinfall finisher several weeks ago and had him beat several people with it. So that way fans become familiar with the move. And, I don't think it will really hurt this match at all. I think when Daniel Bryan puts on the yes lock, I think that the place is going to go crazy and everyone's going to buy into it possibly being the finish of the match. So between that and between the other moves Bryan has, he has the diving headbutt, and people know Daniel Bryan can do all these different moves to pin somebody, the roll up or whatever, any different kind of move. I think that it's not a huge deal that Bryan doesn't have this well-known pinfall finisher. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. All right, next question here comes from WWE Fan 5. Hey Aaron, what did you think of Cactus Jack and Max Payne versus the Nasty Boys in a Chicago street fight at Spring Stampede in 1994? Um, that was a really physical match. I mean, that was crazy. And I definitely see that as a very underrated match and one of Cactus Jack's best matches in WCW. I mean, that match was just insane. So, yeah, I thought that was a really good match, and that was during a period when mainstream wrestling didn't have those types of matches. I mean, ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling at the time, was starting to do matches like that, but you really didn't see it on a mainstream level. So I mean, that match was definitely unique for the time period, no doubt about it. All right, this one comes from Jerome Inc. We all know, talk about, and love the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, but what is your opinion on the Golden Era and the New Generation Era? Well, I grew up on late 80s and early 90s WWF, and I associate that period with my childhood. So I think very highly of that period, and I know there's a lot of critics of that era, especially old school wrestling fans who hated what Vince McMahon did to the business and turned it into a big joke in their eyes, with the over the top superhero like characters and turning wrestling into a cartoon or whatever. Which is funny because now everyone complains about John Cena having the 5 moves of doom and being Superman. But people in the 80s were saying the same thing about Hulk Hogan. But you know what? I loved Hulk Hogan. I loved the Ultimate Warrior and all the other characters. I mean, that was the thing about WWF during that period. The wrestling was secondary. It was all about the characters. And, there were a lot of memorable characters. $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Jake the Snake Roberts, Earthquake, and I can go on. I mean, there were so many interesting characters during that period, and it just made WWE fun to watch. I mean, I just enjoyed watching it as a kid. I mean, it was a lot of excitement for somebody who was my age, and even now as an adult looking back, I mean, I think that it's a good product, and I know some people don't like the over the topness of it, but it is what it is. And as far as the New Generation era goes, that was probably the lowest period in WWE. I mean, they definitely, not just from a business level, but creatively, they fell into a big time slump. And, you really didn't have either the good wrestling or the interesting characters during that period. I mean, you did have a few guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels really shine during that period, but you didn't really have a lot of substance beyond those guys. You had Men on a Mission and the Godwins, and the undercard wasn't anything special, and Mantar, all these really dumb gimmicks that didn't go anywhere, and yeah, that I would say, everyone complains about WWE in recent years and that it's their weakest point, but I would definitely say their weakest point was during that New Generation period, 93, 94, and 95. All right, this one comes from Lewis D3. Hey Aaron, if I remember correctly, you said you have only been to one show during the Attitude Era. So my question is, why didn't you go to WrestleMania 2000 since it was held in California? Well, keep in mind that I was still in high school. I don't even think I was driving at that period. I might have been, but I was on a learning permit. So, it was difficult for me. My mom drove me to the Royal Rumble in 99. And, WrestleMania was in Anaheim, which is a much further drive from Los Angeles to the San Fernando Valley. So, it was just too much of a hassle to go all the way down there. And, the Raw the next night, I did go to that show. That was at Staples Center, and that was the worst seats I've ever had for a wrestling show. We were in the upper deck, literally behind the Titantron. Like, you could see the big curtain behind the Titantron, like, to the right of us, and then, like, we could partially see the ring. I mean, we were, like, in the absolute worst seats imaginable for that Raw the night after WrestleMania 2000. And in a way, I actually enjoyed that show more than the WrestleMania pay-per-view. I mean, that was when China turned on Chris Jericho and joined up with Eddie Guerrero. So, I really enjoyed that Raw, actually, despite the fact that we had the absolute worst seats in the world. All right, one more question here. What is your opinion on Kurt Angle getting arrested for the 4th time for DUI? It's really sad. It has been reported that he has entered into a rehab. Yeah, it's really unfortunate to see Kurt Angle at this level. He's reached a new low, and he has to go to rehab now. And I hope that it was something that was his decision, and he's really making the effort to better himself. I hope that he gets through this, comes back better than ever, and can continue being a difference maker in TNA. And it's hard to make a difference in TNA, but I've said it before. I feel that Kurt Angle has definitely been the guy that has made the best positive change to TNA out of everybody that they've brought in over the years. I mean, Kurt Angle has really made the product better, and Kurt Angle matches are almost always the best matches on a TNA show. So you know what? I'm really hoping for the best with Kurt Angle because he's a tremendous talent, and I want to keep seeing him perform. I want to see him, if I end up going to Bound for Glory in San Diego, I'm hoping Kurt Angle's on that show because he's one of the best wrestlers, one of the best entertainers in the world, period. And, I just hope he gets his act together because I would like to see him in the WWE Hall of Fame someday and maybe even make a WWE comeback. But if he keeps getting into trouble, WWE's going to stay clear of him. So, really hoping that he gets clean and he comes back and kicks some ass. All right, that'll do it for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. Subscribe, youtube.com/NoDQ&AW, and I will see you guys next time for more NoDQ&A video.